Okay, I want to talk about the Haftarah portion. First, when it starts out in Yeshayahu chapter 27, verse 6, the first word there is Habaim. And most English translations translates this as in the days to come or the time to come, meaning Habaim means they that came, okay? And most English translations translate this as a time period, but the Hebrew doesn't actually have anything to do with time. There's no word for time in this verse. And I believe that the Chabad translation is more correct, and it translates Habaim as the people who came, whom Jacob caused to take root. And this echoes the first words of our Torah portion, where it talks about those who came with Yaakov to Egypt. It's talking about these people, Habaim, those who came. Now, jumping to verse 10, it says, "For a fortified city is solitary, a dwelling is forsaken and abandoned like a pasture. There a calf shall graze, and there he shall lie and consume its branches." Now, this whole Haftarah portion is very poetic and prophetic and things like that. But the rabbis, the sages of the Midrashic era, really applied this, and I don't think this is the Peshat, but I think it's valid. I think it's valid for our sages to do this, to apply the Bible midrashically to what they see in their day. And there's rabbis that even do that today. They apply the various verses of the Torah, Haftarah, Midrash, Kabbalah, etc., to the things that are happening in our current day. And certainly it might not be the Peshat, but I don't think that means that that's not, or it's against how Hashem intended for us to use the Bible. Our sages say in the Talmud, turn it, for everything is contained therein. Speaking of the Torah, meaning we can read the Torah over and over and over again, and we can see all the blueprint for all of humanity, for all time in there, whether it's in the Peshat or whether it is symbolic, etc. So anyways, excuse me. The Midrash Rabbah says regarding this verse that it was this which God said to Miriam, "I brought fire out from your midst," Ezekiel 28:18. "Likewise, Pharaoh's daughter brought up the one destined to bring retribution on her father." So that connects to our Torah portion. "So too, King Messiah will one day punish Rome, for he, Messiah, resides with them in that place," Rome, speaking of Rome. "As it is said in Isaiah 27:10, then it quotes this Haftarah portion, "There the calf will graze, and there it will lie down," meaning the sages saw in this verse that Rome was the fortified city, and that the calf that shall graze there and be raised up in Rome, the fortified city, would be Mashiach, and just like Moshe, would overturn that power. And and there are Kabbalistic rabbis who see this, who understand this. There's other verses in the Talmud that talks about, where's the Messiah? He's outside the gates of Rome. He's a leper. The Messiah is a leper, meaning he's an outcast of Yisrael. And of course, Jews will not admit that this is Yeshua, but for people who believe in Yeshua, it seems to fit so perfectly, right? He was there in Rome. He grew up in that area. He was rejected. He was treated as Yeshua is currently treated as a leper to Judaism. But it says in the Talmud that he sits outside the gates of Rome, and all the other lepers who are outside the gate, they take off their bandages, all of their bandages at one time, which is a very lengthy process, and then they put on new bandages all at the same time. But Mashiach, it says in the Talmud, he takes only one bandage off at a time and replaces it. That way he can always be ready. He can always be ready to go, basically, and fulfill his duty as Mashiach, because he doesn't know when he's going to be called. I think it's very interesting. Also, Isaiah chapter 27:12 in our Haftarah portion, it says, and it shall come to pass on that day that the Lord shall gather from the flood of the river to the stream of Egypt, and you shall be gathered one by one, O children of Yisrael. Now this, we were just speaking about this in our class last Sunday evening, about Yom Kippur. And it goes on in verse 13, it says, and it shall come to pass on that day that a great shofar shall be sounded. Excuse me, we weren't talking about Yom Kippur, we were talking about Rosh Hashanah, but certainly it's connected to Yom Kippur. Verse 13, it says, and it shall come to pass on that day that a great shofar shall be sounded, and those lost in the land of Assyria and those exiled in the land of Egypt shall come, and they shall prostrate themselves before the Lord on the holy mount in Jerusalem. And earlier in Isaiah 26:19, so it was the previous chapter, it says, your dead will live. Your dead will live. Their corpses will rise. You who lie in the dust, awake and shout for joy. For your dew is as the dew of the dawn, and the earth will give birth to the departed spirits, meaning the dead. So this is the prophecy of the Bible. And Orthodox Judaism, and also certain branches of Christianity, do take this literally, that there will come a time when there will be a heavenly shofar. And as Rav Reuven was saying also in the class, that this heavenly shofar that will be used to proclaim the coming of Mashiach, that it is the same, that it comes from the ram that was caught in the thicket when Yitzhak was about to be sacrificed by Avraham. And the angel said, no, don't do that. Sacrifice this ram instead. And his two horns, one of them will be blown at the heralding of Mashiach. And not only will it announce Mashiach's coming, but it will also be the call to bring rapture, let's say, if we want to use a Christian term, to rapture both the dead and the living, not to heaven, not to some ethereal place, but according to verse 13, that they shall prostrate themselves before the Lord on the holy mount of Jerusalem. And Zechariah chapter 10, verse 8 to 10 also speaks about this. It says, I will whistle for them to gather them together, for I have redeemed them, and they will be as numerous as they were before. When I scatter them among the peoples, they will remember me in far countries, and they with their children will live and come back. I will bring them back from the land of Egypt and gather them from Assyria, and I will bring them into the land of Gilead and Lebanon until no room can be found for them, meaning Israel will be full. I think it's very interesting right now also. There are some in the IDF, I heard they have a specific patch that they're wearing or something like that. I forgot what the patch exactly said, but what it symbolizes the push for the restoration of the ancient borders of Israel back to the time that the children of Israel conquered the land. It's very interesting because Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, for a time, I was very upset with him because he, like other Israeli leaders, kept on conceding to Hamas and giving up different parts of the land of Israel, which we had already reclaimed. And I think it was more Ezra, he said once, that's not our land to give. It may be our land to save again, to salvage, but it's not our land to give to a foreign power, to a foreign enemy. And so there were a lot of people who were upset about Netanyahu. And it seems now in these days, he's learned his lesson, and he has seen that every time we give up Hashem's land to a foreign power, to a pagan power, it only bites us back, in the end. It only hurts us in the end. We think that we are doing that to concede, to make peace, but I was telling my children, sometimes they think that, the clothes that I give them, that they can just, or the things that we give them, that they can just give it to their friend, just for fun, just, I don't know, in the heat of the moment. They're like, oh, you want this? Oh, you like this? Okay, here you go. You can have it. And I said to my children, no, the things that I buy you, the clothes that I buy you, the things that I buy you, they're not just yours to give. You have to ask me first before I give something away. And it's the same thing with the land of Israel. It is not ours to give. We are only caretakers of that land. And the land spewed us out once for rejecting Hashem and his Torah. And so in order for us to keep that land, we have to honor the land and do with it as Hashem intended.